All right, and we are live. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Gin and Tonic Show. As you well know by now, we are an online podcast, a call-in panel discussion show that focuses on the religion of Islam and related topics. I've said this introduction so many times by now, you'd think that I know it off by heart. In fact, I don't. Do you think it's even worth reiterating it again? Or do you think by now...
Well, the thing is, we need to clarify what it is that we're doing and why we're doing it, so I think yes.
In case there's a first-time listener or something.
There's always a first.
There's always a first time. All right. Well, for you, dear first-time listener, I guess I'll continue with the intro spiel. The Gin and Tonic Show is a weekly online call-in panel discussion show that focuses on the religion of Islam and related topics. In juxtaposition to the propaganda of Muslim apologists, the far-right, conservative Christians and other parties of disinformants, the Gin and Tonic Show aims to bring a balanced perspective to issues pertaining to Islam by presenting accurate information in order to educate its viewers on Islamic history, scripture, theology, politics, etc.
There you go. So we're talking about Islam not being a religion, but being a political system, an ideology, a political way of life, a worldview, and where the religion, which undoubtedly exists, determines the other elements. So the political ideology is being implemented in several regions on this planet. So I don't understand why people can say, why do you say it's a political ideology? It's not. It is. It's like communism with a religion. It's a, Muslims try and distribute the wealth. They try and distribute the resources. You're not allowed this. You're not allowed that. Everything is like social, and they're not comrades, but they're brothers and sisters. And there are so many similarities between communism and Islam. It's amazing, and I don't understand why people don't see it.
I disagree. But I definitely
Let's talk
see
about
what
that
you mean.
Let me just quickly go through the news and then we talk, because I think that's the issue. So Muslims have made this a crazy, violent week. Now I try and ignore the killings and all the violence committed by Muslims because it only shows one aspect of this entire ideology. But how much can I ignore? I mean, Daesh has gone and beheaded 13 on Monday, a guy on Tuesday, and for sorcery. I mean, just because he was a Sunni with Sufi background, he's a sorcerer, and then he needs to die. And this goes on and on and on. What these guys are doing, they kill 100 more. These are foreigners who want to quit again because people are realizing that this enterprise is doomed to failure, and they're slowly seeing that their wild expectations are being replaced by reality, and it's dawning on them they've been duped and tricked into this. Now they want out, but Daesh can't afford the negative marketing, and they killed them. And then this, in turn, pisses off 50% of Muslims. And we have the Great Divide, the same what happened in Pakistan. And then, I mean, my prediction is we'll see more of this, and and this killing and this violence will kill off Islam quicker than anticipated. I mean, if you look at the guy in Sydney now, I don't know what's going on in Australia. 5 kids die, and an Iranian Muslim criminal known for sending hate mail, and he was out on bail apparently.
The children thing
You what?
is not related. The children dying is not. It's just a coincidence. It's not.
It is a
related
coincidence. That's why I said, what the hell is going on in Australia?
You know what? You're not the first person to message me and ask that. I know. Look, it's just, stuff happens. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, then, I mean, this guy, this man, and he's called, I don't know, man is not man. I mean, his name is probably Mansour or something like that. And he's a self-styled sheikh. I mean, he was checked out of Iran, apparently, went to Australia, and now Iran is saying, yeah, but we warned you about him, you see. So maybe there's something more to this here. So people actually knew that this guy was a loony, and that he's now doing what Daesh is telling Muslims to do, and he is actually doing it is a consequence of his personality. And this is maybe what Daesh is banking on, that they're saying there's so many lunatics out there, all we need to do is push the right buttons, and then we'll have chaos in non-Muslim countries. So I don't know. So anyway, he's the idiot who made videos and having his female followers tell the world that rape victims are the ones encouraging rape. I mean, there's a woman who says the women who get raped are to blame for getting raped. I mean, he's such a sicko, right? Anyway, but then you have the Taliban in Pakistan, okay, killing children, and this is now what is splitting Islam in two different groups, because I don't know whether they actually believe it's not such a good idea to walk into a classroom and start shooting all the kids, or whether they realize that this is something that non-Muslims react violently to, that this is really the limit. So I don't know which is the case, but it seems that 50% of the Muslims are really against killing children in a classroom. So that's good, I guess. But I see reactions now where people are saying, no, we strongly condemn anybody that does. I mean, they're still dishonest. Okay, they're still saying, well, these are not really Muslims. Instead of just saying, yes, they're Muslims, yes, they're taking parts from the Quran, yes, I mean, what Daesh is doing is living the life of Muhammad. And I don't understand why Muslims cannot accept this. I don't understand why Muslims cannot say, yes, Muhammad was a pirate, he was a warlord, yes, he raped, yes, he plundered, yes, he encouraged rape and torture, killing and all that. He was not a role model for today. He might have been a role model in 1,000 years ago, but today Muhammad is not a role model, and you need to accept this. I don't understand why people are dishonest and yeah. But now think about this: the guys go in and they kill a couple of hundred kids, going into a classroom, and you send your kids to school, all right? And then people come in there and they shoot them. And what does their God do? Nothing. So he's probably too busy torturing gays and women without headscarves or something. And Muslims notice this, okay, which results in even more educated and intelligent Muslims leaving Islam. And more will follow as Muslims commit more and more atrocious acts until only fundamentalist radical Islamists will be left, unfortunately. So those people are the ones that are killing Islam, not atheists. So I don't know why people blame me, the atheist, for passively waiting for evidence. And anyway, what is quite funny, I don't know if you heard the story, but now a Texan plumbing company or a Texan plumber is getting blamed for supporting terrorism because he sold his car. Well, he traded it in for a new one, a pickup truck, a Ford F-250, I think it was. And he gave it back to the dealer. The dealer immediately auctioned off without removing the logos, because in the States you need to have a logo on the side of the door if you want to use the car like in a loading zone or something. So what happened is that it suddenly appeared in a clip by Daesh, the Daesh cutthroats. And they had mounted a machine gun on the back and sent a photo around, via Twitter. So unfortunately, because the trucks, it still had the company name and the logo on the door, a lot of U.S. citizens are naive enough to believe that this guy donated the truck to Daesh or something. And, the phones are ringing off the hook. And the poor guy doesn't know what to do. I mean, he says, come on, I'm a plumber in a Texan village somewhere. What have I got to do with some terrorists in Syria? But it's... And anyway, whether or not the truck was actually sporting the logo is still up for debate, by the way. So there's still there's things that it could be a montage and that they're just trying to associate blame with somebody that nobody really knows what the story is. So another thing is that there's two countries putting stunts and living on propaganda today. That's the Islamic Republic of Iran and North Korea. And what is funny is that a movie about terrorists this time took a humorous side of North Korea, and this was pulled due to threats of violence. So not only Muslims can play this game. So in all fairness, I need to say this as well. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't be surprised to find that this is just a marketing tool. It's a horrible marketing tool, but worthy of U.S. propaganda, because they would pull a stunt like that just to promote a movie, make it look as though they've been hacked by North Korea and making it such a politically despicable game. Anyway, The Bristol Gender and Violence Research Center has come up with a number that says that Daesh has kidnapped something like 2,500 non-Muslim women and made them sex slaves, either selling them off or marrying them off to the people, because that's how they find people apparently from overseas. They come in there, they give them women and sex galore, as much as you want. I don't know if this is true. This is just one report. I have not been able to verify this. It's just out there. It seems legitimate, otherwise I wouldn't be mentioning it. But there are no corroborating reports about this. And then I never know whether I should mention who did this, but GP has sent me an article showing vividly how superstitions within Muslims are now being taken to extremes. Like, everybody knows that a Barbie doll is something that girls like, but Muslims hate for various reasons. Because, anyway, what they're doing is they're selling a doll without a face. Because there's clerics who maintain that you can't have eyes in the house, or superfluous eyes or additional eyes, or a face, or any facial features for that matter. That's why they hate Barbie dolls. So the weird thing is that an Islamic cleric laughed about these superstitions and said that Muslims are not stuck in the past and are embracing the current era with its technology and scientific achievements. I wonder who he's trying to kid. Does he even believe himself what he's saying? I mean, I'm aware of the fact that the simpletons like LDM or Talk Islam, they're marginal, but millions and millions think exactly like this. They say that you can't have pictures and photos of a person on the wall because angels don't visit a house with a photo or the picture of a human on it. That's just because it says this in the Hadith. This is what they believe. So there we go. So this was what I wanted to get off my chest. Just a quarter of an hour of just things that have been happening around the wonderful world of Islam. So let's get back to what I was talking about.
Communism.
What were you talking about?
Just a couple of points. With the Islam is not like any other religion, I think there's a lot of assumptions that people make that are wrong. There seems to be this idea that Christianity, there's a sort of a trope, right, if you will, or a topoi, that topos, plural topoi, that a theme, whatever, a narrative, that Islam is, political, and Christianity, and the reason why it seems so distinct or discrete or unusual is because Christianity is just purely theological and it's belief-based. And I think that's crap. I've been thinking about this, and Christianity has always been political. The churches are still now. Churches are always involved in politics. They do get involved constantly, and if you go back to the past, even more so, the Catholic Church's constant, incessant struggle for power with various local kings and emperors throughout medieval history. So, I mean, it's just, people create this false dichotomy between religion and politics. It's like when people say, it's not religion, it's culture, or whatever. It's just meaningless. It's a false dichotomy. Religion is culture. Culture is religion. But you cannot separate them. Similarly, I don't know if you can even separate religion from politics. With politics, religions are political, and politics is often religious. So I don't know. I find it very, I find it puzzling that people even find this puzzling.
I find it puzzling. I don't understand.
No, what I mean is, I find it puzzling,
which is based on a god, can be implemented as law of a god on earth.
Oh no! But now you're being looking at the actual claims of the ideology and that rationally. I don't mean that. I mean why people are puzzled that Islam has these sort of political manifestations or whatever, and it's it's all religions are political, or get involved in politics. It's very common, and it's been going on for a very long time. I don't understand why some people somehow forget that. It makes sense. People.
Well, I think in the past it
religious
has been.
Power structures. Okay, you have some exceptions, but even then, what have they done? They've created their own society.
Yes.
That's exactly what these Muslim sort of nationalists.
But they don't proselytize.
It doesn't matter. Regardless of whether or not they're proselytizing, they're still trying to create their ideal society based on their religious and cultural precepts. So I think it's still a fair analog in that respect.
Okay.
It just depends on how aggressive they are. You know what I mean?
Then it depends on your definition of politics.
Okay. Well, I guess politics for me is how you run a society, how you run a country.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. The country aspect. This is important. Yeah.
And even then, I mean, I've already said this on prior shows, but Confucianism is just a, whole system of society and government. Like, for example. So, I mean, I think it's very common for religions to be involved. I mean, Catholic Church has always been involved in politics and the running of countries. So it's, I don't know why people
are actually surprised. That there was a Christian preacher in the States who used to call Bush like every Monday morning or something?
Oh, I don't know who it was, Farwell or someone. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there you go. I mean, American evangelical Protestants, very involved in trying to influence politics and thus influence the law. So it happens all the time. I mean, it's no surprise that but other than Muslims who try to implement Islamic political theory as based upon the Quran and Sunnah, just like every other stupid ideology and belief system and whatever. So I don't find that surprising at all. Yeah. But yeah, do you want to talk about the communism similar to Islam thing? Because that's an interesting topic.
Because other than the Holy See, there is no country that I know of that is based on Christianity, but there's plenty of places based on Islam. So this is the distinction that I make. And if I look at Islam, then I bumped into this like 2 years ago when I was making a video using propaganda material, propaganda pictures from the old communist era. And I realized how similar this is. This is why I've developed this thing that there's a lot of similarity between communism and Islam.
Well, there's a distinction to be made. You have states that draw upon Islamic, religion, let's say, to bolster their rule. So that would be Sadat's Egypt, for example, right? And they graft sort of, if you will, Islamic traditional Islamic elements or something onto the state, and then you have people who want the state to be, their vision of an Islamic state as per Islamic political theory. So Daesh would be an example. These are two different things. I would say in the former, it's almost like a cynical self-preservation sort of ploy by a state to try and draw upon to try and legitimize themselves, and states use all different ways to legitimize themselves. And one way is to try and appeal to the religion of the people who you are ruling over. So for example, the Soviet Union at one point reinstated the Orthodox Church. I think was it during World War II? To try and appeal to Orthodox, sentiment still among the Russians, for example. But yeah, why would you think that Islam is similar to communism? I mean, a better question is, I guess, what do you understand by the term communism?
All right, this is the first thing, because communism and Russia, for example, are two different things. The same thing as Islamic Republic of Iran is not necessarily Sharia. So you need to define your term. So in communism, I see a way of life which is based on the basic principles of what Marx and Engels proposed, which is that people are treated as equals. There is no superiority. People are all contributing towards the GDP or the state or the nation or the welfare or well-being of the entire country. And this is what the goal is of communism, that you have just administration and the rest. So this is the higher sort of philosophy behind it. The implementation then is what for example, you found in Russia, is that you don't have individual ownership, you don't have individual responsibility, you have communal ownership of a farm, of a factory, of any kind of a manufacturing process. This is always owned by a group of people who then determine who is the one who is coordinating and things like that. So this is the practical implementation. The principles along which this is then run is for the good and benefit of the all. And this is what is replicated in Islam. This is that you have the ummah, where everybody is part of the ummah but is responsible only for themselves. In other words, there is no, like the resources in a country are not seen as the resources of one family or the person who owns the farm under which the oil is found, but it is for the resources, for the benefit of everybody. And then you just have this family coordinating this and distributing this. Then you have the laws that come out of a manifest. In other words, it's not the society which decides on the laws that they live under, but they go and submit to something higher. And this, for example, in communism is the Communist Party.
Nah, so I strongly disagree.
Okay, fine,
Communism is actually okay. So there's a lot of confusion here. So for example, people often use communism and socialism as synonyms. They're actually not the same thing at all. Socialism is the state that is supposed to lead to communism. So Russia was never communist. It had a communist party, but the society was never communist by their own identification. Russia was the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. Khrushchev said, and I think in the 60s, he said, in 20 years' time we will have communism. So by their own self-perception, they were not communist. So this is not like a true no Scotsman, whatever, no true Scotsman fallacy. This is by their own theory. And if you go and look at like Engels and Marx, this is very clear. So communism is actually the state where the state of being, let's say, the stage where the state dissolves. Communism is no state, no administration. That's actually what communism is. So Engels says, for example, I've been doing a bit of research on this. That's how I'm able to access these resources, right? I'm not just a genius who has this all memorized. Engels says...
Why did you give it away? You had everybody fooled.
Yeah. I'm sure you all thought I was amazing for one moment. Engels said, state interference in social relations becomes, in one domain after another, superfluous, and then dies out itself. The government of persons is replaced by the administration of things and by the conduct of processes of production. The state is not abolished, it dies out. So the state, so the idea that was developed by Marx and Engels is that the natural evolution of human society will ultimately lead, after the internal contradictions of capitalism lead to a workers' revolution, which leads to the state of socialism, when the workers seize control of popular or worker control over economic institutions guarded by the state, the revolutionary socialist state. Right. That will lead eventually, just by the dint of the way that things are being taken over by popular, democratic associations of people just working together, will lead to the dissolution of the state. And eventually,
that's what Islam says.
No, Islam is a state. The idea of Islam is...
Okay, now I understand the difference.
We have a state with a God, God rules, and we have all these laws from God that we follow, and we have to expand. That's the opposite.
Yeah, this is what I call socialism gone. That's why only God remains.
No, because God's state remains in Islam. See, Islamic political theory. When I say Islam, I mean Islamic political theory. Okay, all right, blah blah, all the caveats. Obviously, there's nuance, whatever. Okay, I'm using it as a heuristic.
Yeah.
Okay, so because you have whereas the whole point of communism and socialism, the whole point of socialism and anarchism, they both seem to try to be getting at the same sort of communist end stage, from what I can tell. This sort of post-state societies where there's no more coercion. There's no more coercion of the state on anyone. Everything is just free, democratic associations of individuals working together in communities. Democratic control over all the means of production. Right? I mean, what Islam is the opposite. I mean, it's you have the Sharia and you have all these laws and you have to follow these laws and there's you have to force this system on other people, like imperialism. Whereas communism is anti-imperialism. It's anti-coercion. It's anti. So I actually think they're quite antithetical. But by definition, as a Muslim, if you're a Sunni, right? If you're a Shiite, you are a monarchist. You believe that one family, not even a tribe, not even the Quraysh in general, but the clan Hashim, and of clan Hashim, it's the Ali line, was the true and divine monarchy, essentially. right? So that's communism is anti-monarchy, right? It's anti this privilege. It's anti this imposition of this kind of privilege and structure and power. And Sunni Islam, even though it's not as specific with that monarchy, it still limits. Okay, only the Quraysh can be the caliph, and the caliphal structure. Gonna expand imperially. I don't know. From what my research into the actual definitions of communism and socialism, from what I've dabbled in researching, Marx, Engels, and blah 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 blah, it seems completely antithetical to communism. But that's just my opinion.
No, whatever. And I agree with you that if you look at it deeper down, the analogy falls apart. I agree with you. It's just that there are some similarities where I point out that it is a little bit like communism because it is opposed to capitalism. Because you have all this distribution and you have all the power of the state being the people. So
you just have a clerical elite who are supposed to balance out the state.
Yeah. There's always the people who are more equal. Yeah, of course.
So it's Islamic State, it's not really communitarian. I mean, you still have your privileged elite class. You still have a mercantile class. Sunni's the case in point. They're the ulama, the self-electing, the power elite who control the masses, who tell the masses how to do their religion, who they're supposed to follow, how they're supposed to how much.
No. The ultimate judge is always God.
Yes, but God has arbiters on earth. His ulama, his representatives who have preserved his. Because how do you know what God wants? You have to go through the ulama within Islam. You have to go through the clerical interpretations. So I'll give you an example.
It's in the Quran.
God says, that's why no, it's not. See, it's a lie. The Quran says you can marry 9 wives. It's it's and. No, find me a Muslim who thinks that. None do. Why? Because they do have an interpretive tradition that they're just not even conscious of.
No, but Kling, now you're making the distinction again between communism and Russia, the same way as you're making the distinction now between Islam and the implementation of Islam in, I don't know, some country. In
well,
so yes, I agree with you. But
what I mean is,
all Sunnis apply.
All Sunni, if we're talking about Sunnis, for example, okay, if we're going off the Quran, that's a different matter, because what the Quran says is not what Sunnis say. Going what Sunnis say, for example, they do have a clerical class which dictates how they read and interpret the text, and thus how that informs their religion and their beliefs. Because, for example, this interpretive tradition from the ulama is what tells us that the Quran says you can have 4 wives and not 9 wives, even though on a literal basis the correct text says 2 and 3 and 4. For example. Yeah. So there is actually a clerical influence there. It's just less explicit than the Catholic Church. But they do have a clerical class that does, and sure, it is drawn from the public, but it's still a power elite and oligarchy telling people how to live their lives. So it's, I don't know, it's complicated, I suppose. Whatever.
Okay, it's just
anyway.
It's just because it appeals to me. I like this. I like the similarity. Because people, like non-Muslims, are much more familiar with the principles of communism than they are with the principles of Islam.
So it's good to appeal to some sort of analog to illustrate the point. I mean, I can understand that. I get what you're trying to do.
It is an analogy, of course it is, and it may be not even the best one, but what I use it as a sort of a shock treatment, where I say, look at the similarities, and then, of course, when you go into the nitty-gritty, it breaks apart. And yes, I agree that if you then look at the details deeper down, then it is different. But in the beginning, to get people away from this picture of Jesus and religion, it serves very well.
Oh, yeah, I guess. People are stuck with the only example they're familiar with, which is,
Now, what interests me a lot more is how do you see, or what is your opinion, what the development is going to be in the split of Muslims, which are like 50% divided on what is happening now regarding violence by Daesh and Taliban in Pakistan?
Well, what specifically do you...
What do you see as a reaction, as a consequence of this?
as a reaction of the
what I
difference.
see is a split down the middle, where 50% of the Muslims say, well, you cannot immediately condemn this because you don't know the circumstances, and this was a military school, and those people, the apologists, who say you cannot condemn immediately if they kill a couple of hundred children. And then you have the other side, the Muslims, who are saying, this is too much. You cannot do that. That is not what Islam is all about. These are not Muslims. So you have the two sides, the one condemning this and the others who don't. And this is carrying on. There are more, there's 50% who say that Daesh is actually doing what they're supposed to do, and that is implement Islam in Iraq. And the others are saying, no, they're doing it the wrong way, and they shouldn't be doing it like that, and that is not Islam. So I always see the split down the middle between the people who say, yes, it is a quantifiable or qualifiable event, and the others are saying, no, this does not qualify as Islam. And I would love to know what your opinion is on what the future brings if this continues, if this is going to split more people, and if this is going to cause more people to leave Islam, as they say, as they actually look at the Quran and see the violence in the Quran.
Look, I think it'll force a lot of people to reevaluate a lot of their assumptions. People will, as you say, look closely at the text and start to think about their views on these kinds of issues. Is the violence legitimate? Am I wrong? So for some people, this may cause a doubt sufficient for them to actually even, for example, leave the religion.
So you're talking about Muslims now?
Yes, I mean Muslims. I mean, but I don't know. I mean, I'm not familiar enough with the situation to be able to give a real, an in-depth analysis of the implications.
Yeah, but it's a question of whether you think that a person walking into a classroom and arbitrarily, randomly shooting kids is good or bad. Is something that you can condemn?
I would say
well, actually, no, let me think about it.
Oh, no, I would say probably the majority of Muslims would think that's bad. Most Muslims seem to reject the Taliban.
But there's still people who are saying, no, you can't, you are not allowed to criticize the Taliban.
It's... Who? Who says that?
Well, clerics. You have a lot of clerics in the news who are saying, well, you can't just condemn them. You need to go and inspect the situation and understand the context.
Well, I think you should understand the context, but there's something like killing kids. I'm going to find that displeasing regardless of the context. So, I guess that's the point, though, is that you should just find it displeasing regardless of the context.
But hang on, Kling, we have the same situation where I ask Muslims, do you condemn Muslims who stone women?
No. Okay. So this
90% say no, you can't say that.
I think there's a distinction to be made. If you say specifically about Taliban, I think most people...
I'll get some coffee quickly.
Okay. Most people are going to say, screw them. They're bad. They're not following true Islam. But when you say, do you condemn stoning, what you're then saying is, do you agree that your scripture is full of it? And that's a different question from, do you condemn this militant group who are killing people? Is a different question in people's minds, I think, from, do you think that your holy book is, wrong and incorrect and morally reprehensible? Because that's really the question you're asking with the stoning thing. And I think that might account for why people are more hesitant to, condemn stoning, because what they're really condemning is, the hadith, the sunnah. So it's the same as asking Christians, do you condemn stoning in the Old Testament? I don't know. I imagine most will not actually condemn it. Instead, you'll get a kind of bullshit, it was right for the context, or it's been replaced now by a new covenant. Just rubbish. So I would be interested, I think it might be useful as what do you call it? a test sample, or I can't remember the term in science, when you have a test and then you have like a parallel sample to, God, I can't remember the term. I'm sure any of you out there who do science know exactly what I'm trying to say. Whatever. It's sort of like a, God damn it, I cannot think of the term. It's gone out of my head. Whatever. Yeah, as a parallel sample, to ask Christians the same question: do you condemn stoning in the Bible? And that then might give you an idea of, Muslims relative to Christians in terms of percentages of people who are reluctant to criticize such things. Does that make sense? But then again, you're probably getting coffee, so it's fruitless to ask for your feedback right now. Yeah, let me just check the comments section and see if there are any questions or queries that I can answer whilst I await your return.
Well, it makes sense, but I don't think that you get as many Christians who will say, no, I don't condemn stoning, as you get Muslims, because I'm actually quite surprised. We've had a request. Let me put the link in there. So if anybody wants to join, just go and click on the link. We're doing this earlier than usual, but that's cool because we don't have any topics at the moment. I just wanted to clarify this with the split down the middle with Muslims, because I'm a bit puzzled how you can still get Muslims that somehow manage to qualify, that somehow manage to say, well, you can't categorically condemn the Taliban for going into a classroom and killing kids. This is beyond me, all right? I don't understand this. My brain cannot process this. There's no way that I can compute how somebody can even for 1 second hesitate and think, well, maybe there is a reason why this is okay. I can't do that. I'm sorry. I am incapable of understanding this. And I can't understand Muslims who can and who do. It's unbelievable for me. So this is why I wanted to ask if there's any way that you can understand this, that you can explain this. Okay, so we had, who was this? This was
a control group. That's what I was trying to say. Far out. A control sample to compare it with. Or whatever. That's what I was trying to say before, guys. Thank you to Vegzur Hule for suggesting specimen, but I meant control sample. Also, Yoli Drew says communism has a central committee. No, the Leninist socialist republics that was socially around had central committees. Again, I clarified this before. By their own self-designation, they were not communists. They had not achieved communism. Cuba is not a communist country. It's a socialist country. By definition, by their own admission, by their own theory, communism cannot be achieved until the state dissolves. So
I need to collect all this, because here's another one. That communism has a central committee that interprets the law, and what the people are going to do is like the ulema. So this is also a little bit like it. So
well, that's why I just clarified that.
Like on the left, I put Islam, and on the right, I put socialism or communism or whatever, and just try to actually put this together and look at the differences and the communalities. So
that's what I'm saying. It's the state, the Politburo and all that kind of stuff. This is the Russian model. This is the Leninist Stalinist model. I mean, it's and that was socialism, not communism. Again, people use the term socialism and communism as if they're the same thing. They're completely not the same thing. Socialism is supposed to be the states that can enable the development of communism.
So the difference between vehicles.
And the thing that's really frustrating is that everyone in the world gets this, apart from the United States and Australia. And here, everyone's just totally, because there's, our political scenes in both countries are actually really far to the right. Even our left-wing party, so the Democrats in America and the Labour in Australia, are actually pretty right-wing by the standards of the rest of the,
really?
Yeah, I mean, come on, like what's Obama doing?
Who was this girl that looked
Well,
like
look at the
Jodie Foster?
healthcare option that Obama's put through. Oh, slightly privatized. You know, like I mean, whereas here in the rest, of the, in the rest of the developed world, what do you have? You have full state welfare, like Germany or something. So it's.
But who was the girl that was running Australia who looked like Jodie Foster a bit? She was pretty liberal, wasn't she?
Julia Gillard.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
See again, like she didn't even allow gay marriage.
Oh, really?
Like
I thought
come on, what kind of oh well, yeah, they're liberal, but liberal doesn't mean left. Again.
Okay, for me there is a similarity, or there is a connotation. Oh, Mister, can you say the name again of the guy who just joined us?
Vegzur Hule.
This is so cute.
I can't pronounce German. Fuck up. Well, how do you say that? How do you say that in Deutsch? Come on, give us.
Well, ask him.
No, you say. Come on, you can speak German.
I can't because he's. I don't speak this.
No, give it a try.
German.
Give it a try.
Hello.
Say it.
Weg zur Hölle.
Weg zur Hölle.
No, but she speaks this Swiss German.
Okay.
Can you hear me or not?
Yes, we can. Hey.
Good.
How's it going?
Fine. Thank you.
Excellent. Any thoughts? Any feedback? Any comments? Any topics you'd like to discuss, or just here to chill?
No, you just talked 2 minutes ago about how people can dismiss one thing and accept another thing, something like that. And yesterday I was with the Ahmadiyya Mosque in Zurich, and the Ahmadiyya are not very, how do I say it?
Conservative.
They are very liberal in seeing the Quran only in the good ways.
Just Abu Molid, can you mute your microphone?
Yeah. I tried to.
Sorry, there was just a lot of noise coming through your mic. Yeah, awesome, thanks. Sorry, continue.
And I had a 3-hour talk with them, and I just saw how some people thinking in this world. In the biography of the Prophet Muhammad from Ibn Ishaq, you see one passage where it says that Muhammad led beheading from 600 to 900 people. And in the end, they said, the Imam said in the first place, that wasn't the Muhammad, that was the decision of Ibn Zad or something, or someone like them. So they used this excuse, even if it said that Muhammad led in the end beheading so much people, that it wasn't his decision, etc. In the end, I was left with the question, why is Muhammad not better? And they say, yes, it was a decision that was made by a judge, this Ibn Zad, and it's like a contract, and Muhammad was not allowed to break the contract. So Muhammad is fine, everything is all right with Islam. It was just a bad decision by someone else. But who gave the judgmental power to this person? It was Muhammad from the first place. So that's how people decide, I think, in life.
How they justify it for themselves, and it makes you sick.
And it's the same for me, the same with Taliban and Daesh and Boko Haram. It's like people are saying, no, that's not Islam, that's just a bad decision from another person who doesn't understand. Just they themselves understand. Everyone else, if they do something bad in their perspective is not Islam.
But did you by any chance ask him whether he thinks and believes that he's being honest?
He gave me the impression that he's totally honest in this perspective, yes. And I said to him clearly, if that's your way, it's not really your moral, it's not a sign of moral strength. And, well...
Exactly,
yeah.
yes.
He couldn't say anymore, but just to defend Muhammad, it was clear it was not Muhammad who would make the decision, even if he let, in the end, decapitate the people. And I can't understand, I couldn't understand, I say to him, the act in itself, it's just gruesome, it's just really ugly, and in the end, at least he admitted Muhammad should be better than this and maybe should act others. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's not allowed to criticize Muhammad. This is the old problem. They will justify and qualify and lie and deceive and everything just to protect the image, just to protect this funny concept that they have. It's not reality. It's not something real that you would attribute to a human person, a man. It's this angel-like concept that they build around Muhammad to make him something better and something worth following, even today. I mean, it's so sick. You didn't by any chance ask him whether he condemns Muslims who who stone women to death, right?
No, I let many questions open because I want to take an interview with him. That he can answer that later.
I thought you had to leave and throw up.
No. I just wanted to show him that I am not a Christian or a nationalist, right winger, etc. I just wanted to show him what I am, what I do with the show, Weg zur Hölle, etc.
Okay.
And in the end, I convinced him to at least give me an interview with question he can view in the first place.
He can preview them. Okay.
Yeah.
So when are you going to do that?
I have to prepare a set of questions.
Okay.
As ugly as possible, so that he has really to think about to give a good answer how to defend gruesome acts.
Please do me a favor and include my favorite question, because I'd love to know what
We will do that, yes.
Amazing. Okay. All right, but then I think Klinger's going to get coffee or something. Abu Molid As-Scandinavi from Scandinavia, I suppose. Did you have something specific or a comment on this?
Well, I don't have any comment on that. I mean, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, but it's I'm a former Muslim, so I had the exact same problem. I didn't really understand what this guy. Is he a Muslim or is he?
Who's this?
No, this.
Weg zur Hölle is not a Muslim, no.
No, but the guy that he was talking to.
Oh, he was Ahmadiyya. Yeah, he's a Muslim.
Okay.
Are you aware of the Ahmadiyya?
Yeah, but I was Sunni, so.
Okay, but you know that they're a branch of Muslims who are not allowed to be Muslims and who have been told they are not Muslims.
Okay. I don't remember. Yeah.
Well, there's this famous case of, because there's only one Nobel Prize winner who has a scientific prize, okay? This was in 1999 in chemistry. And there was a second guy who was Dr. Abu Salam. No, not Abdul, Abus.
Wait, do you mean there's only one guy who's Muslim? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other guy was Dr. Salam, and he was found to be a Qadiani, which is a sub-branch of the Ahmadiyyas, and therefore he was not considered a Muslim. So they used to have two scientific Nobel Prize laureates, and one was excommunicated, as it were, so they left with only one. That's why I thought. Okay, so this interview was with an Ahmadiyya who are becoming a little bit more active the way that I see it, because they want to spin their own little story based on Mr. Ahmadi. There you go. So I think they're even more deluded than others. Okay, but Abu Mulhid, what made you leave? What convinced you to be a Muslim, and what stopped convincing you?
Well, it's kind of funny because you were talking about communism before, and the thing was that I grew up in a Marxist family and so on, and I was actually a communist before. Yeah. So I was actually a communist, a Marxist-Leninist, before I became a Muslim. But I was very, very young back then. So, but so it's kind of funny. But there are similarities. Of course, there are a lot of differences. If you look at Muhammad ibn Abdullah was no doubt a trader, and he was, you might say, a capitalist in a sense. So in that way, it's rather. It's not very different. It's very different, but in one way it is kind of different, similar, because the fanaticism and like this, you're struggling for a kind of higher goal. And, yeah, so it's kind of similar. Yeah, so I became a Muslim, and I was Muslim for 5 years, and I was Talib Ilm, and I was studying, and I was actually in Medina when I left Islam, so that's kind of cool. And I was studying at the University of Medina. And what made me leave Islam? Well, a lot of things. I don't know what straw that broke the camel's back, but I think the thing, I was really, really attached to it, and that was all my life and so on. So what really, I think it was like the cosmology things. I'm not born Arab speaker, but I studied Arabic for 5 years. So when I started to learn Arabic really well, and I could understand the Quran and the Hadith, I realized, and also the Fatawa, and I studied under Mashayikh and so on. So when I understand what the cosmology of the Hadith and the Quran was really, really different to the things that, that I know was true because I grew up in a fairly civilized country. I realized that, the thing that really broke the camel's back was like the sun, and that it's obvious that the Hadith and the Quran says that it's the sun that is taduru hawla al-ard, is going around the earth, not the earth that is rotating. So that was the real thing. But there were a lot of things. Yeah.
And was this a gradual process, or did it suddenly hit you?
Well, that's kind of interesting. Is it a gradual process? Just 1 month before I leave the deen, but I couldn't leave the deen, really open, because I was in Saudi Arabia, and that's, they have the death penalty for that and so on. So I have to be very secret about it. But and I was also a student there, and so it was very, very difficult. What was your question? Excuse me.
No, I was just interested. So you are telling us that you were an atheist in Saudi Arabia?
Yeah. But I was just in Saudi Arabia, an atheist for life, or atheist. I just didn't believe in the. I was a Muslim, and I was studying in the university there, and then some things that I read in the Quran and Hadith, I just couldn't stand it. So I had a deep reevaluation of all things there, and it was a very dramatic period in my life.
Okay, so it's not one thing that hit you, but it was a gradual process where you had started having doubts when you were comparing reality to what it said and claimed in the Quran.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I remember before I was in. I don't know if I want to say too much, because then maybe people will figure out who I am. But anyway, before I was studying in another Arab country, and I remember there were other things that I had problem with, but I managed to suppress that.
Okay. Now, if you look back, what do you miss most?
Excuse me?
If you look back at being a Muslim, what do you miss most?
Having a meaning in life. That is.
Really?
That's the whole. I mean, I'm now trying to. I mean, I'm reading Nietzsche and reading like people that how do you overcome nihilism and things like that.
Okay.
So that's the thing I miss, to have like. And I mean, it is kind of fun. Like, it was kind of fun. Like, it's, I think Sam Harris says something like it's being a cosmic James Bond or something. I think it's a very good, I mean, analogy. Yeah.
But you do realize that you have a life. You're not a toaster. You're a person. A toaster has a purpose, but not a human being. A human being has a life where you can change things. You influence your kids. You influence family. You influence those around you. You influence the entire planet by being there. Isn't that enough?
Well, I mean, yeah, but that's an interesting philosophical question. I mean, what is the meaning? I mean, but I mean, there's the objective meaning of life, like
exactly.
That kind of. So you know that this is the thing.
Okay, it's interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how you still react to that. What you have been, well, I don't know if you've been indoctrinated or taught or told, or these are different nuances. So, but it's interesting that you still react to that. That's quite fascinating, I believe. Okay.
I would like to ask.
Yeah, sure.
Did it hurt you as you realized that you are an atheist at that point?
I mean, I didn't really think like atheist first. I just realized that the Quran can't be the word of God. And when I realized that, it was like, I mean, it was very. I mean, it's impossible to explain. But I remember I was there in the mosque, the Prophet's mosque, and I went outside there. I don't know if you've been there. It's like a big, like, complex. I mean, it's. And I looked up at the sky. Yeah. And I looked up in the sky, and I just realized how immensely weird it is. I mean, if you haven't been a Muslim and really, really believed in that kind of stuff, that the only thing you're thinking about is like the eternal life, and you don't care a shit about this dunya. You only care, and then you realize, dude, there is no eternal life. There is only this shit, and you realize you're just a small, tiny, meaningless part of this gigantic universe. And I mean, it's impossible to explain the feeling, but it was extremely weird. Yeah.
Overwhelming, perhaps.
Overwhelming is. I mean, I'm very happy I remained my sanity or gained my sanity.
Wow, that must be tough. Okay, Jews for Jesus. Welcome to the Gin. I don't know, Kling. Are you back or not?
Sure.
Oh, okay, then you do the honors.
Oh, okay. Well, welcome to the show, friend. Come and join us in our discussion. What would you like to talk about or comment upon, if at all? How was that?
Honorable?
Juice, are you there?
You frightened him. He's not used to being handled that politely.
Maybe he's also off getting coffee, or perhaps his microphone is disconnected, and right now, as we speak, he's scrambling to connect it, desperately trying to plug in the cords, and it's not going in, and then he realizes it's the wrong cord, and oh no, and all the while they're waiting for him to talk, and it's terrible.
I can you hear me? No, we cannot hear you. I can see the microphone symbol flashing on and off, but there is not a peep coming from your side. Yes, here I am slamming LDM for their lack of knowledge and incompetence at getting a conference going, and now we have people here too who are not able to connect a microphone. Okay, yeah.
Well, how about we just continue talking, and when we hear him, when he connects, when we hear him, we'll revert back,
when there's he can this big rambling noise.
Tell us, yes. So yeah, anyway, what we're
No, because we're just trying to pick Abu Scandinavia. No, what Abu
Mulhid.
Scandinavia. The brave, because it's not that often that we have people who have gone into communism, who have gone into Islam, and then have decided, no, neither one is for me. So, no, hang on, you never said that. What about communism? Are you still a socialist? Are you still somebody who believes in that?
No, I don't. I mean, I'm not very interested in politics anymore, but...
So you're just a run-along capitalist?
Well, I'm some kind of, like, general, broadly liberal democracy, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not so interested in politics anymore, I must say.
Okay, but are you an atheist, or have you decided to join another god?
No, I'm definitely an atheist. Abu Mulhid is atheist, so I'm... Inshallah, I will be father to a Mulhid.
Okay, so one god for you is enough. One experience with a god is enough for you. Okay. But now, can I just... I don't know how personal I can get, because I find this fascinating. That you say with this purpose, all right, with this purpose in life, it's not often that I have the opportunity to actually speak to somebody who has been there and who still has a problem with this purpose in life. What is it that you would like to have as an atheist as a purpose in life? Or do you see
that's
anything
the problem. There? I mean, if you just make up a story like on the world. Like that. I think someone joined there.
Okay, that was an entrance with a bang. Yes, now you can hear your microphone. Are you using the built-in one?
Where were we? Yeah, no, but I don't know. That's the point. You can't just. I mean, if you're an atheist, you have to base your goals on the truth. You can't just okay, but my goal is to worship this this guy in the sky or this entity in the sky, so you have to find out something. That's a deep philosophical question I think you have to struggle with all your life, actually, because I think I don't have any definite answer on that.
But do you feel, and this is what I hear a lot from others, do you also feel the sudden surge of freedom that you are allowed to think what you think and you are allowed to find yourself the way that you want to and not being told what to think but how to think?
Oh yeah. I mean, I even remember that it was for a lay person or even not very Talib Ilm Kabir or Mashayikh that you were not even allowed to read philosophy. But that's kind of funny because I had some there were some other guys there that before that they had just studied in Al-Azhar in Egypt, and there they actually studied some philosophy. But it was not the Saudi sheikhs didn't like that. So yeah, it's a big. You become free and you can think for yourself. That's very cool. And I mean the universe and life is fantastic. So in that kind of way, it's no problem.
Well, all I can say is brilliant and congratulations. And thank you very much for the insights into this. This is, for me, this is fascinating.
Don't worry. It's okay. Yeah, can I ask Klingschor a question, by the way?
Go
ahead.
Have you read this about, you know this Tom Holland guy, I suppose? I think you talked about him.
Yes, I correspond with him every now and again.
Yeah,
well, he was on the show here.
Yeah, he was on the show. Yeah, so I'm very interested in this thing. I mean, where might the original Mecca be? Where's the original location of?
You know what
Mecca?
is a massive coincidence? I just finished writing a 22,000 word article. Oh, it's mostly endnotes and footnotes and stuff. On that exact subject. And on Twitter, when I tweeted this, none other than Tom Holland indicated his keenness to read the article. So that converges nicely with the recent events in my life. So that's what an amazing coincidence. I guess God must exist.
Subhanallah.
Yes. Anyway, well, what was your query?
Yeah, so
I love this show.
I don't know. I read like I don't know if you've seen this homepage, like the search for Mecca. That they proposed that
Dan Gibson. Yeah.
that they proposed that El Petra or Petra is the best guess.
Oh, I
No,
see.
it's just one
It's
of the guesses.
possible. I don't know. My problem with Dan Gibson is that he seems like he's kind of self-published. He hasn't published with an academic press, so I actually don't know how reliable. So that's the function of say academic presses and credible presses, is that they give you an indication as to the reliability of the approximately, generally speaking, the reliability and verifiability of the sort of the research that's been done, peer-reviewed academic presses. What Dan Gibson has done is kind of just self-publish it or publish it with some really obscure press, which
doesn't make it wrong.
No, it doesn't necessarily make it wrong, but it does, as a rough heuristic, make it less. It makes it a bit suspect. So for me, there's a question mark on his research.
Okay, but now
I would like to buy his book. I'm going to try and buy his book and give it a read and see what I reckon. But I think he's a Christian. I think he's a Christian apologist, actually. And he takes the Bible literally. So his history of Arabia begins with biblical history, for example. And he takes it seriously. And I think he believes that Abraham really did exist and we know what Abraham did and all this rubbish. So that's in some important context for this activity. And I've been reading his posts on forums and stuff because he's active online. And it seems like he's like, it's almost comes across like a Christian polemical apologist, device. Like, ha 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 ha, look, your Mecca is in a different place than it used to be. Christianity wins. It's almost a sort of a hidden kind of vibe I get from reading his, because he says so it seems like he's a Christian. He says, no Muslims I could talk to have been able to answer this question, rah, rah, rah. And so I'm uncertain as to the veracity of this research, is what I'm trying to say.
And then let me add my 2 cents, because I'm just looking into Petra. I'm just looking at the Nabateans. It was a different reason. I started with women's rights, and I ended up in this era in the city, because if you look at the inscriptions, you have all this Manat, Al-Utsa, Ilat, and so on. And these gods that they were worshipping, and you find the actual names there, and you find the papyri, there's some rolls which actually depict that females had rights, that they had inheritance rights and things like that. And this is the aspect that I was going for. And this is why I exclude Petra, because Petra, the Nabateans were a little bit before Islam, like 200-300 years before them. And what happened is that they were incredibly wealthy. They were traders, and they were in the middle of the trade routes, of course, sitting there in the south of the Jordan Valley. Everything converged there, and they were incredibly good with managing, for example, the resources. They had an oasis next to it, so they were building crops. They were doing all sorts of, which would indicate, or would be the same as what is claimed in the Quran and the Sunnah about Mecca, but the rest doesn't fit, and it's the wrong time. It's the wrong. Everything else is wrong about Petra. This is why I, for myself, have excluded Petra on the account that the Sabbateans were the ones who were actually living there just a few hundred years before.
Well, also, there's no reason to necessarily think it was Petra. I don't, Dan Gibson tries to say, oh, look, the Sierra describes a valley, and oh, look, here's a valley. But I don't know. It's a bit vague. I mean, you could probably do the same thing with, it kind of reminds me of, actually, Jews for Jesus told us about that Lebanese guy, I think, who argued that all of Arabia, also the Holy Land and all history of the Israelites and all that occurred in southern Arabia, right? And oh look, if this place can fit here, this place can fit here. I don't know. So sometimes sometimes you run the risk of retrofitting, or post hoc analysis. So it's important not to fall into that trap. And so, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I definitely think that Islam originated, or the Quran originated from Northwest Arabia. I think the evidence now seems overwhelming. But I don't know if it was Petra specifically. So, for example, Ptolemy mentions a city called Mecca. He calls it, Mecca's the English version. It's Mecca in Greek and Makkah in Arabic. But I'm just going to use the English Mecca, right? Ptolemy mentions a Mecca in Arabia, Petraea, in the region of Petra, but it's not Petra, right? Petra is listed as well. Petra is a different place from Mecca, right? So I don't know. It's unclear where exactly it was. But again, it isn't even clear that necessarily that the Quran audience and author lived in Mecca. Mecca is only mentioned in the Quran as a valley where they struggled in one instance with a hostile people. That's nothing at all to tell us whether or not they actually lived at that place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's only when you add the hadith that it becomes...
Exactly. It's the Sirah tradition from way later, so it gets a bit sketchy. But yeah, I think what were you going to ask in particular? Sorry, you were going to ask. You said you've been reading Tom Holland's materials, and you wanted to ask a question about Northwest Arabia, and I fear that I diverged.
I haven't read his whole book, but if you have a link or something, I would like to have his book as an audiobook. I know that's not, but I don't have so much time. So I would like.
You know what? I would. That's also what I'd love to find. I'd love to find an audiobook version, but unfortunately, I have not been able to find one.
Okay.
I'll look on. Maybe I'll try and buy one on Amazon or something, but I don't even know if one exists. But anyway.
Yeah, but if it doesn't exist,
Give me $1,000, I'll read it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I, from what I read in his book on that chapter, I have substantial agreement with him on a lot of issues, and I think, and he points to a lot of, to some contextualizing factors that really help to explain why modern-day Mecca was chosen as a replacement, for example, which I had not read elsewhere. So, or if maybe Priscilla Corona said something like it, but it wasn't, from what I recall, it wasn't clearly articulated. So I would recommend Tom Holland's book. It's just a good general introduction.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. I know you talked about this a lot, but did Muhammad exist for the first, or was he more than one person? Like Robin Hood, did Robin Hood exist? It's probably a mix between several people. And if he existed, where did he exist? And where was he born? And so on. And yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. On that subject of Muhammad and whatever, it was suggested last show, and I don't know if you were suggesting it, Stop. I think you were, that Muhammad is a title and not a name.
Yep.
What would indicate to you? What's the evidence for that view?
Well, everything the way that it is mentioned. If you look at the Quran, Muhammad as such does not appear there. This is just 4 times that the MHD appears there, and in all 4 times you can read it as a title. Then you have what we've discussed already, the different accounts, let's call them accounts, that you do have in history, and they can also refer to the Saracen prophet.
The problem with that is that if it was a title, I would have thought it would say, okay, so for example, Fir'aun, right, the Pharaoh, is a name in the Quran, right? Now, how do we know it's a name and not a title? Because it's not El Fir'aun, it's just Fir'aun. It's a proper name.
Exactly.
Right? You won't have the L in front of it because the L makes it a thing and not a proper name. When it's a proper name, there's no L. So, for example, it's there's an example in a surah name that helps exemplify this point. So for example, Surat Quraysh. It's not Surat El Quraysh. It's just Surat Quraysh. Why? Because Quraysh is a name.
Okay, I see what you
right?
mean. Yeah, that it
so
should
with Muhammad, I would have thought if it's a title, it would be El Muhammad, the praiseworthy. But I'm not aware that it is. I'll check, but I'm fairly certain it's not. And so that's why I would have a question mark. I would be certain that the name Muhammad began as a title because it's a mu, right? So what do you call someone who does hadith? He's a muhadith. Right? What do you call someone who does tafsir, commentary? He's a mufassir, right? What do you call someone who does the hijrah, the migration? They're a muhajir, sorry.
I can tell you if you want to have the grammatic explanation for that.
I understand that Muhammad is the praiseworthy, whatever, right? As a etymology.
Wait. This was
interesting. Yahmidu fahuwa. But basically. Yeah, and in the Quran it says Ismuhu Ahmed, which is kind of interesting.
What would that indicate?
That his name will be Ahmed. I mean, of course, that's pretty much the same meaning, but it's like, his name is Ahmed, which is kind of, I don't know, but it's interesting.
Interesting. But what about this Muhammad? In terms of the etymology of the name, regardless of whether or not by the time of, say, the Quran it was taken as a name and not a title, is it clear from the name that it began as some sort of, because it seems like as in terms purely linguistically or whatever, it seems like an analog to, say, Muhaddith or Mufassir or Muhajir, Muhammad. Right?
Yeah, but there are names that start like that also, so it's not. I mean, it's not definite.
That's true. Exactly, and that. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, but that's one thing I want to say, that you can. There are names like Muawiyah. Yeah, a Muslim. Yeah, but Muslim, I don't think. I mean, that's also one thing. I don't think. I mean, if you look at, did they really call themselves Muslims? I mean, did the early Muslims really?
No.
But there are other names. I don't know if I can figure out any name right now, but some Sahaba that was called.
No, but the name Muslim is perfect. I mean, I'm pretty sure the name Muslim predates the term Muslim, if you know what I mean. Like the term Muslim as a demonym for a religious group appears 685? No. I think it actually begins with Abdul Malik. So 691 or something? I'll have to check. But a person called Muslim bin something or other, some governor, is mentioned, in early coins and stuff. I'm fairly certain. So that's a case of, regardless of when the term Muslim for a religious group came to use, the term Muslim as the name as a personal name existed. So that's a great analog. Muhammad and Muslim.
Okay, that's not. But definitely, there was names that started in that, like.
Yes. Yeah.
So way before, Muhammad. So.
Yeah. So just because Muhammad's called Muhammad doesn't mean it's a title necessarily, because names existed like that. So that's the key point there. Let me see if I'm just going to look up the.
Juice for Jesus. Do you want to try again your microphone?
I would like to. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's my mobile phone now that I'm using for communication. It works better than the Google browser.
Wonderful Google.
Yeah, but the mobile phone also runs Google, so it's kind of a trade-off. Yeah. Anyway, I had some different issues to raise, but the last one was about the original position of Mecca. I just wanted to remind you that in the classical narrative, there is a change embedded of the praying direction of the Qibla from Jerusalem to Mecca. So that might be either...
Not from Jerusalem. It doesn't mention Jerusalem.
Oh, yeah, right. What does it say instead? Al-Aqsa?
No. It just says to the sacred mosque. It doesn't specify anything.
Sacred or
the old one or the new one? It just says this is why you are endowed to pray towards the sacred mosque.
And this is interpreted as the change from.
And this is then interpreted to mean from Jerusalem to Mecca.
I'll give you the verse. The verse says, Surah 2, verse 143. So we've made you a community, blah, 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 the Qibla, blah, blah, blah. And then it says the next verse, Surah 144, we have certainly seen the turning of your face toward heaven, and we will surely turn you to a Qibla. So turn your face towards Al-Masjid al-Haram, the sacred temple. Yeah, so basically I think that's the verse, and that's interpreted by Muslim tradition as being changing from Jerusalem to, Mecca, but that's not clear in the text itself. So it's like Al-Masjid al-Aqsa is taken to be Jerusalem, but that's not clear within the text itself, for example.
Okay, so let's then talk not about the text itself, but it's about its interpretation, because also the interpretation doesn't appear from out of nothing. So either this is...
it does. It's wishful thinking.
No, well, there might be an occasion why the wish appeared. Why did it become important to interpret the words such that it fits a change of direction?
Okay, I will not I will go for coffee. You explain this.
Okay.
Yeah. So I understand that it's not directly said in the text, but the idea is such that probably there was something in history that made it lucrative or somehow beneficial to change the direction, and it might serve two things. Either this is a tool to reconcile that the temple was moved, like not the temple, the holy site was moved from somewhere in northwest Arabia to the Hijaz. So it could be an indication of a tool, or what I think that apologists would say, just to reconcile that some people used that there were simultaneous how do I say, simultaneous holy sites that were in competition with each other, and then this toolbox was used actually to explain why that's the case.
It's possible. The problem with tafsir, the problem with traditional Muslim commentary on the Quran, is that it's just, especially tafsir, is just completely incoherent. So I understand what you mean, like, there was some kind of rationale to give this explanation, maybe even a germ of truth, maybe a half-remembered historical context, but in the case of Quran commentary, it's all speculation. I mean, the Muslims who wrote commentaries on the Quran were so far removed from the actual origin of the text, they had no idea. They just had no idea what was actually going on. So Patricia Croner gives a really funny example, and I think I've already read it on the show, so I'm loath to repeat myself. But it's just such a classic example. I remember I mentioned Surat Quraysh before.
Not in this show.
Just before in the show, just a little while ago, I mentioned the name Surat Quraysh as an example of a name not having an L in front of it if it's a proper name. So instead of it being sort of
17 and a half minutes ago.
Yes. So that same surah refers to two journeys. That's what the chapter refers to. It's not a very long chapter. It just talks about two journeys. Now, Muslim tradition, interpretive tradition, tried to clarify, tried to explain, what are these two journeys? What is being referred to? And Patricia Connor explains these attempts thusly, if I can quickly find the quote. Here we go. The answer is worth okay. The journeys, we are told, were the greater and lesser pilgrimages to Mecca, the Hajj in Dhul al-Hijjah, and the Umrah in Rajab. Alternatively, there were the migrations of Quraysh to Taif in the summer and their return to Mecca in winter. Or else there were Qurayshi trading journeys. Most exegetes hold them to have been trading journeys, but where did they go? Then went to Syria, we are told. Quraysh would travel by the hot coastal route to Ayla in the winter, and by the cool inland route to Basra and Adriat in the summer. Or else they went to Syria and somewhere else, such as Syria and Rum, wherever, however that is to be understood, or Syria and the Yemen, as is more commonly said. Quraysh go to Syria in the summer and Yemen in the winter when Syria was too cold, or else Syria in the winter and Yemen in the summer when the route to Syria was too hot. Alternatively, and then she goes on to list a whole bunch of other options that are offered, and it concludes this way. In short, the surah refers to the fact that Quraysh used to trade in Syria, or in Syria and the Yemen, or in Syria and Ethiopia, or in all three, and maybe also in Iraq, or else their habit of spending the summer in Taif, or else the ritual visits to Mecca. It celebrates the fact that they began to trade, or that they continued to do so, or that they stopped, or else it does not refer to trade at all. So
it's a universal placeholder.
It's just crap. It's just crap. It's just incoherent speculation. I mean, the commentaries are just evacuated of substance, clearly. You know, I mean, it's just speculation, divorced from the actual historical context by a century or so. So that's the reason why I'd be very hesitant to give any credibility to Muslim tradition, because I don't think the Muslim tradition, in my opinion, is only really that useful when corroborated with earlier contemporaneous or near contemporaneous sources, such as, you know, the source attributed to Eusebius, or such as whatever, George the Archdeacon, Jacob of Edessa. These sources, when there's convergence between what these sources say and Islamic tradition, then we can say, okay, Islamic tradition may have preserved something approximating accuracy in this instance. You know what I mean? So when it says Muhammad was a trader, well, you know, Jacob of Edessa also says Muhammad was a trader in 691. You know, so maybe there's a genuinely remembered, you know, nugget of information there within Islamic tradition, vis-a-vis these earlier sources. But otherwise, it's just meaningless. I mean, it's just so much speculation, so much incoherence. I mean, another great example is with the Hijrah. Why did Muhammad go to Medina, Yathrib, right? What was the context in Yathrib for him to go there? Do you guys remember?
I think that Abu Lahab and his former protectors turned against him.
Yes. But in Yathrib itself, what was the context? Why was there a need to call in Muhammad?
Because of the different tribes warring each other.
Right. Exactly. So the tribes in
Klingschor and his university streak.
Shush. So even Ishaq tells us, and this is generally, you know, you find this in Muslim tradition, tells us that they were fighting. There was this sectarian, you know, or well, intertribal war, I should say, and so there was a need for an external, neutral arbitrator, right? A hakam. And so Muhammad was called in because his followers said in Yathrib said, this guy's a great guy, so they're like, oh, okay, we'll get this guy to be our arbitrator, right? But when Muhammad arrived in Yathrib, we're told that the town of Yathrib, if I'm remembering correctly, the town of Yathrib was united enough that they were actually in the process of electing a king when Muhammad arrived, right? Abdullah ibn Sulay, I think it is, the leader of the hypocrites, the head of the hypocrites. So, which is it? Was Yathrib in a state of anarchy requiring an outside arbitrator, or was it united in electing a king? I mean, it's just this is incoherent, and Patricia Cronner also talks about this in some detail as well. So it's just, it's just rubbish. It's just, well, okay, when I say rubbish, I'm using that as a heuristic to, express the incoherence and the confusion and the untenability of the content, which I'm just using rubbish as a heuristic for that, So, I don't know if we can actually even really use the Sira tradition.
The fact that it's incoherent, I mean, this is what we often have, that we have one source that is contradicting each other.
No, but this is
contradicting itself. Yeah. And this is what we have here. I think this is not very unusual for documents for society in this state. So they were more wandering around rather than sitting in a fixed place. So it's natural that they cannot keep notes for that long. Mm-hmm. So, but what I was thinking about is that if you connect the archaeology that we have and I don't know, all the other textual reasons to place a holy site in northwest Arabia, mm-hmm. that you've listed all the time, and you also think of that there is a holy site in the Hijaz. What you can make out of that is that there were competing holy sites. Is that a possibility?
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, it is a possibility. Tom Holland suggests that there was already a holy site there in Mecca, or what is now Mecca. So it's possible that there was, but I'm inclined to think that it was consciously shifted.
Mm-hmm.
By Al-Hajjaj, by the Abd al-Malik, by the Marwani Umayyad dynasty.
Yeah, well, to distinguish themselves from the Jews, right?
No, I don't think. I think it was. Well, there are several reasons. These are the various factors in a nutshell that sort of help to somehow contextualize, or might offer to contextualize, the rationale. The first point is that it may have been politically expedient for the Umayyads to distance the cultic center of their state ideology, because remember, Abd-al-Malik uses Islam as a tool for the state and says, okay, we're Muslims, I am the Caliph of God, Muhammad was our messenger, here's some Quran quotes, here's the Dome of the Rock, so he's using the religion as a state ideology. So it may have been politically expedient for the Umayyads to distance the cultic center of their state ideology away from the politico-religious stain of the rebel Zubairi, right? Because the Zubairis had used Mecca as their base in their rebellion against the Umayyads, in their pious rebellion, right? And also for the Umayyads to distance this source of anti-Umayyad religious piety and rebellion farther from the state capital of Damascus. And this could be achieved by physically relocating the sanctuary.
Yeah, exactly.
The original one in Jordan, or wherever it was, is quite close to Damascus. So, it'd be a problem if people are constantly rebelling from there. Second, the relocation of the sanctuary to a site near to modern-day South Hijazi oasis of Taif probably derived from the Umayyad connection to the region. So Taif, which is right near modern-day Mecca, Muawiyah built a summer palace there. Taif was governed by Marwan bin al-Hakam, Marwan is the father of Abd Malik, right? And Taif was the birthplace of Al-Hajjaj. So what are the odds that Abd Malik and Hajjaj would relocate the Kaaba to a sanctuary right near where they seem to have grown up or have been familiar with the childhood, or seem to have familial and historic connections to the region? What are the odds? I don't think it was a coincidence. I think their familiarity with the region was the prerequisite for them to actually choose it as the candidate for the relocation of the Kaaba. And I think it's not unreasonable to suppose, as Tom Holland does, that an ancient sanctuary of some kind was already there, and that both Abd Malik and Hajjaj, and I quote Tom Holland here, would surely have been intimately familiar with the shrine that stood a mere 60 miles to the northwest, unquote, of Taif. So that's another factor that could help. It's also argued by Patricia Croner and Tom Holland. I'm not sure. I think Tom Holland touches upon this point in his book. No, he does. He talked about this a lot in his interviews as well. And Patricia Croner argued this. It may have been theologically expedient to situate Muhammad within this rural pagan outpost. Because then it's like, it's a miracle. It demonstrates the originality and miraculousness of his message. Because look, he was in the middle of this pagan environment. He was nowhere near Christians and Jews, really. When he produced his Quran, it must be from God, right? It serves to sort of exemplify this sort of miraculousness and purity of his message, right? Now, a fourth factor would be that it's possible that the concept of a sanctuary, a haram, such as the Kaaba, was actually flexible or transferable. So, for example, it's recorded in some Muslim tradition that Abd Malik actually turned Jerusalem into like a haram or like a sanctuary for even for pilgrimage during his war with Ibn Zubayr, because Ibn Zubayr controlled the Kaaba in Mecca. So Abd Malik briefly made his own sanctuary. So it demonstrates that maybe sanctuaries are flexible. Maybe you could make and unmake them. Maybe you could move them.
I've heard about this. There is a professor of Orientalism or something, I think Arabistic in Israel, who is popularizing this story quite a lot because it serves him that Jerusalem was just arbitrary holy for Muslims.
Oh, I see. Oh,
I think his name is Mordechai Kedar.
I'm not familiar, unfortunately.
Whoa.
Interesting. I mean, but
that's the guy who goes on Al Jazeera and talks in Arabic to the Al Jazeera reporters.
Oh, really? But I mean, as early as Sebius 660s or Pseudo-Sebius, this Armenian source, mentions the importance of the Holy Land to early Muslims. So it seems unlikely that it was. I'm sure it was already holy to some degree, prior to Abd Malik doing what he did. But anyway. The fifth point, and this is one so for example, the Shiite, early 20th century Shiite Ayatollah, Al-Khawi, or however you say it, he made this argument in regards to the Quran, because some people suggest, even some academics suggest, that the Quran was first properly codified and collected and made into a book by Al-Hajjaj and Abd Malik. And so in response to this, Al-Khawi argues that how could he have done this? How could they have imposed this? And all Muslims accept that, that Quran. And the same point is made in regards to the shifting of the Kaaba. How could all Muslims now have the same Kaaba? So it presupposes that the Shiites, Sunnis, whatever, Kharijites, everyone must have accepted this relocation, because now all Muslims, pray towards and recognize the Kaaba in modern-day Mecca, Saudi Arabia, right? And this seems to be suggested by Neil Robinson, who says it is difficult to see how the authorities could subsequently have succeeded in imposing, unquote, a new Qibla or Kaaba. This is my response. This is what I would note. Basically, the regime of Abdul Malik, I think, was uniquely placed to impose this kind of change upon the early Muslim community. Every major early sectarian group within early Islam, all the groups who would otherwise have posed a threat or been able to mount a resistance against this kind of change, were actually all crushed in the lead-up to the full power of Abdul Malik. So sort of the proto-Shiites of Kufa, where most Shiites were based, were crushed by Ibn Zubayr. The traditionalists, you might call them the proto-Sunni Muslims of Mecca and Yathrib, who were led by Ibn Zubayr, were crushed by Abdul Malik in 692. The Kharijites of Eastern Arabia were crushed by Abdul Malik, 693. Soon afterwards, the Kharijites of Iran were crushed, again by Abdul Malik, 699. Every major rebellion was crushed and put down in the lead up to the full power of Abdul Malik and his supremacy over the early Muslim community. So he was actually in the perfect position to impose this kind of change. How could they have, what were they going to do, rebel? He just destroyed them. He just crushed their rebellions. Their force was spent. So it actually makes perfect sense that this time period would be the one where the Quran could be, codified and forced upon all Muslims. When, the Kaaba could be relocated. The Qibla could be changed. Does that make sense?
Yes, but I have a little question to this.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be necessary to crush the enemies that hard, like you described here? I mean, we see this in the Catholicism and all the pagan rituals they have taken over, and we know very, very well what these pagan rituals still means, etc. So,
yes,
I think.
So you're right. It wouldn't be necessary.
As a race, as the human race, I don't think you really have to do much to convince people. That you can see in the very early history. Just less humans know about World War II. Only the old one and those who are interested in politics and how the states of Europe came to existence that are now today like that. And even less know anything about World War I. So you only have to convince a certain group of people or just not talk about history at all to change things into something different. Only about 2 to 3 generations of people. Yeah. So.
No, you're right. I mean, Tom Holland gives a really good example of this with Iran. And how a sacred fire was lit somewhere, and then it was claimed that the fire had always been lit. And so a generation or two later, people were just operating with the assumption that this fire had been burning for eternity. Or it gives some sort of analog how actually you don't even have to crush everyone or force it. Like, people will just end up accepting it very quickly.
That's what I mean, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So I agree with you. I think you're right. It isn't. This is just against the argument that like, how could it have been imposed with all these different groups? And saying, well, actually, if that is a necessary prerequisite, then the prerequisite was actually fulfilled already. Although I don't even think it's that necessary. So you're right. It could just happen organically.
I mean, I can see that a certain group has to be destroyed. That I can see that if the idea of something is that far different from their own idea, you have to destroy him. But other than that, I don't see that you really have to kill everyone in a certain tribe or clan or etc. So yes.
Yeah. Anyway, it's we're getting close to the end here, so maybe we should wrap up.
It hit me when you were speaking. I had to go away. Sorry, I didn't follow. But it hit me that maybe one way you could try to figure out what went on in the early Islam is to like trace back what happened to the tribe of Quraysh, because there should be some records of them if they existed before the life of Muhammad also, even if they were influential and so on.
Well, Tom Holland suggests that Quraysh. What does he say? He says something. He makes an interesting observation that there doesn't seem the Quraysh don't actually seem to be mentioned before Islam, and actually, what they might be is from a Syriac. What was it? Harshay or something, which meant, according to him, the Arab confederates who were in the service of the Romans or something, or were giving the Romans their leather, the leather trade. Although, that being said, I think I recall even David Morris saying that this is actually unsubstantiated, so it isn't clear. But there is some suggestion that maybe Quraysh didn't mean a tribe, it actually meant a group. You know what I mean? And then they would be attested.
But how do you get the lineage then to today's people? How do you get al-Baghdadi claiming he's Quraysh?
Don't know. I mean, it could be that as time passed, they came to identify. I mean, take the Kurds. How is it the Kurds identify as a single people? They're not. They're from a diverse range of backgrounds, ethnically, in terms of their heritage and whatever. But they have sort of agglomerated into a self-identified group now. So now you have the Kurdish people. You know what I mean? So it's how did that happen? I mean, people, I mean, that's obviously over a much longer time period. But it's possible that the Quraysh, this confederation of various clans, ended up just identifying as a single polity and thus a single tribe. And then, of course, a false lineage of genealogy was established, just as the biblical genealogy is obviously false. All these biblical forefathers. Oh, Adam had son Cain and Abel, and Cain had blah blah blah, and he had him, and he had him. And it gets us all the way down to Jesus or something, right? I mean, it's rubbish. It's just people just invented genealogies to suit some sort of political or cultural need. I imagine the same thing must have happened with the Arabs.
I mean, it's kind of obvious. They say that they are, the Arabs are the sons of long-term Abraham. That's kind of obvious. But this is also I wish I had like a time machine and could go back to the area when they made up the Hadith. I mean, because it's kind of, the Hadith is so weird. I think because if it's only like you're making things up in order to fit your political agenda, I mean, it's one thing. But if all the Hadith are just like fantasies and like they all made this up, why are they like? Why are they? I mean, filled up with all these strange things about like weird political happenings, and they are executing.
I'll tell you what. I might be able to clarify this. Right? Don't think of the Hadith as a giant forgery. I think that's a straw man. And I think that's what Muslims like to say. It's like, oh, what do you imagine, a giant conspiracy theory? No, that's not what happened. With the people who forged New Testament materials, a lot of the time, the mentality was not, from what I've learned, ascertained from academics who talk about this, the mentality was not, ha ha ha, I'm faking something. The mentality was, this is what I think probably happened. Yeah, this is what I'm putting down now is probably what happened, or or I'm doing a greater good here by enshrining what has to be the correct religious practice within this narrative to give it, legitimacy. So look at the Hadith, I think, as generations of narrative materials being produced and accreted and imagined and sometimes, maliciously fabricated, but usually probably benevolently fabricated over generations.
Yeah, reflecting the era and the time and the
yeah, exactly. And you have waves and waves. So, for example, you have these stories about how Aisha, Muhammad cheated on Hafsa with Mary, the slave girl, on the day she was supposed to have sex, and then Aisha told and tattled about it, and that's why, the first few verses of Surah 56 or something, right, was revealed. And now I don't think that's true. That's probably rubbish, right? But that was one wave of...
It explains it to the normal people, yeah.
And then that story went out of fashion, so you have a counter-story that was produced. Exactly. People say, no, that can't be what happened. Yeah. What actually must have happened was Hafsa and Aisha were teasing Muhammad about the honey that he was eating and said it smelled like, smelly glue, and tricked him, and that's why it actually happened. And so you just have generations of stories accreting and building upon each other, and then in dialectic with each other, in tension with each other.
Yeah, but it's still like fairy tales.
Oh yeah, it's all rubbish in terms of it being historical. But it's not a giant. It's not a I wouldn't think of it as like a conspiracy necessarily. More as generations of stories.
This is what fairy tales do.
Yeah, exactly. So does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but yeah, definitely. I mean, no doubt. But I'm thinking about that a lot. Like, how did they think? Like, what? I mean.
Yeah, but it's like you say, you need a time machine to verify this, but at the moment, we only have, there are indications which would point in that direction. There's no way of verifying this. So the only way it's like you say, you need a time machine to go and verify it. Other than that, you could only speculate.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. And I mean, it's also interesting. Yeah.
Then we have the hadith of the day, of the week.
Hold on. We'll just let Mulhid finish what he was saying, and then we'll finish up, okay?
Oh, it's okay. So we can. There will be opportunities. No.
Oh, just finish. Just finish what you were saying. Just finish the sentence. And then,
actually, I forgot.
I thought it was finished. But listen, can you come back again, because you've got some interesting views, and it's very nice to hear from somebody who's gone through all this, and where it's still fresh in the memory, because a lot of people they are ex-Muslims, but this is like 5 or 10 or 20 or whatever years ago, and then they forget what happened.
It's actually a kind of. It was. It's for me. How many years was it? More than 5 years. So that's for me too. But it's kind of fresh in my memory. Anyway, I hope. But I try to come back. Yeah.
Great stuff. Okay, then I found a hadith which, and this is not that I look for it now. It's just by chance that it fits into this whole thing with Mecca and Qibla, and the whole stuff like that. Because it's by our favorite Abu Ansari. Allah's apostle said, if any one of you goes to an open space for answering the call of nature, in other words, going to the toilet, again, I don't know if people know the call of nature, he should neither face nor turn his back towards the Qibla. He should either face the east or the west. And this is in Bukhari 142:15. I don't understand. What happens if you are to the east of Mecca, and then you have to go for a crap, and you have to face west, then your bum is facing, and it doesn't really matter where you are. It's always like, I don't know what these people were thinking.
Well, the idea is, I think, you have to pray north or south. So you have to.
But what if you're in Moscow?
You have to go to the toilet.
Yeah, but in Moscow, if you're facing north, your bum is facing south, directly towards Mecca.
No, then you have to. Oh no! Then you face a different direction.
Okay. Any closing thought? Oh, sorry, this is your line.
No. You go. It's fine. I've got nothing to say. Yeah, this is great. I liked a lot of what we touched upon. I think it's really interesting stuff. But I say that with every show, so that's like it's a given for me. But
no, but I like that, with me, Sohela, and with Mr. Abu Walid, we have people who have intimate knowledge of what it means to live in a Muslim environment and to have the hands-on experience, and I find that is so fascinating.
Maybe I can say one thing. Today it's the shortest day on, so it's we in the Norse mythology used to celebrate this day as we call it Midvinterblot. So it's old heathen tradition. So
yeah. Well, it's called Christmas now.
Congratulations on Easter.
Yes, there is hope that the sun will shine longer, and today's and it's actually the birthday of a good friend of mine, which we celebrated yesterday, which I'm a bit worse for the wear. But the thing is that I always like her birthday because then it means there is hope that the days are going to get longer again if you're living on the northern hemisphere. In the southern hemisphere, it's well, tough tacky. Now winter comes.
Oh, maybe you, Klingschor, are on the other side of the earth. I don't know.
So say that again?
You're from Australia, aren't you?
Yes. How did you tell?
Then it's
So for you, it's going to be winter soon.
Well, we're in the middle of summer.
That's what I say. It's going to be winter soon.
Well, winter, what, in like 6 months or something? Come on, like, okay, soon. Oh, yeah, well, you know, soon the dinosaurs will return or something. Well, relatively speaking. Soon soon the sun will explode. Well, in a couple of billion years. Oh, okay, yeah, okay. Winter is coming to Australia soon, in several months.
Last famous words from Mr. Juice for Jesus.
Well, I thought I would be celebrating Hanukkah, the holiday of competing temples, but I think it's also just a winter solstice tradition.
Yeah, like most of them. It is amazing how all these old pagan myths and legends and rituals
stick around,
somehow survive for thousands of years. I don't think in those days I mean, if you would have told them then, you know that in 2,000 years they're still going to do this, they're going to think, what? Are these people stupid or what? Amazing.
All right.
And say Weg zur Hölle. Klingschor. Say this was so good.
Weg zur Hölle.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, it's the same badly as my English, so it's okay.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, guys, for not having good Deutsch pronunciation. It's a deep fault of mine. Anyway.
You have to learn because the new Deutsche Reich will arise.
Oh yes, yeah. Again, the dinosaurs will return, and the Reich will return. Great. All right. Well, on that note, have a Merry Christmas or something. You know, with that thought in mind.
Oh, this is okay. True. There's no jingle bells or anything in the sound effects.
Well, you're just gonna. All right. Yeah. Wow, that's it. There you go, guys. There's some Christmas-themed music.
And let's see. We're going to be between the holidays. See you next time. See you in a week's time. Cheers.
Bye.